Hello and welcome. This is Peace News Now. We are live this Sunday, June 8th, 2014. Happens to be my 25th birthday.
Happy birthday.
And that voice is Brett Veinotte. He is from the School Sucks Project. Check it out at schoolsucksproject.com. He's going to be joining me during this whole episode inside Peace News Now Studios, what we're calling Studio B, above LRN Studios, and it's very good to be with you, Brett.
It's very good to be with you, too, and I'm, really happy that I was the guest on your birthday. It feels very special, so it's good to be here.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, we're just hanging out. I've never had you on this show, and Peace News Now is now almost 2 years old, and I love your show. We're both LRN brethren.
Yes.
We share the airwaves on LRN, and I just think it's important to get to know the other co-hosts, and if some people who listen to this show don't know that the School Sucks Project or the podcast is happening, then this is their opportunity to get filled in. And I'm sure most people are already familiar with it, but I thought we would take some time to talk about who you are and what the project is, because I think it's one of the best, most important projects for peaceful resistance. And that's what this show is all about. You can call in. Our number is 443-424-8347. That spells out Hi-Fi Civ Dis. So if you want to make your thoughts known or ask a question of Brett, you can do that by calling in or Skyping us at all one word, Peace News Now. We'll be happy to take your calls. And so, Brett, who are you? And how did you start this podcast? And when did it begin?
Sure. The podcast started in 2009, and at the time, let's get into the who am I. I've been working in education for almost a decade at that point, and I had done a variety of different jobs. I had been like a residential counselor, it was called, at a boarding school, and I eventually worked my way up to being a teacher there and saw a lot of things, about what it was like. Go ahead.
Is a residential counselor like a guidance counselor?
No, it's more of like a euphemism for a job that anybody in the town could get, where you go and just kind of supervise the kids in the residential setting. So
supervise? You're just watching? Just making sure they're not killing each other?
Well,
or what?
Interacting with them, helping them through their routines, doing discipline when necessary, and...
What did discipline involve?
It involved a lot of things.
Did you have to dish out any discipline?
At the time, I did, yeah. And at the time, I had a much different attitude.
Bare bottom spanking?
No, we used to do restraints, physical restraints.
Get out.
Yeah.
Like strapping kids to chairs or something?
No, not using any kind of straps. That would have been a little too much. We used to use this technique. It was called non-abusive physical and psychological
well, if it's non-abusive, if it's right there in the description, if it's right there in the title, then it can't be abusive, right?
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of euphemisms in my description of this job.
Yikes.
So we called it was nappy. Is what it was called. And basically what we would do is there's a couple different ways to do it, and it changed while I was there, but basically we would use kids' arms as a straitjacket and kind of put them down on the ground face first and just kind of hold them there until they would calm down.
Oh, did that work? Did that calm students down to be put face down on the ground and restrained?
Sometimes, well...
Is that a calming thing? I mean, like, who does the research for this, where they're like, we're going to calm the kids down, and, forget the music, forget the calm water, we're not going to give them a drink or anything, it's just going to be restrain them and throw them on the ground. Like, who are the people who come up with this? Are they experts of some kind?
Expert is a term that people use. They're pretty loose with that word, expert.
Man, it's just so sick to think about, like, some guy, you, Brett, you're a young guy, and you come into this job, and they're like years, centuries of history behind education, and they've been presumably trying to figure out the best way to educate kids, and then they teach you, like, here, put them face down and use their arms to help restrain them. That will calm them down.
Well, and that's interesting, because was it calming them down, or do they just eventually submit? And they would eventually submit and calm down, meaning they wouldn't fight anymore, and then they would be let up. And needless to say, even though I knew none of what I know now, over time, and in fact it happened pretty quickly, this job started to wear on me. And I was a small guy at the time, like I was my height, but I was 21, so I probably weighed like 150 40 pounds.
Right, yeah.
And you know, my boss he was like 6'7", 300 pounds. He was like almost in the NBA, but he hurt his knees. He's like, you got to hit the gym. So that's actually when I started.
Whoa! He said that as a recommendation because you were going to have to battle these students.
Oh, because I looked like there were kids, and I would just look like a rodeo rider, like flopping around on the back of a kid who had been, you know, obviously fed bad food on these drugs that lead to weight gain and maybe big to start with. Like some of the kids there were 6'2", 6'3", much bigger than me. So I started to try, and that was the mentality, though, of the school, like, beef up so you can do this job because you're a guy, you know. Now, there were women who worked there, and they weren't expected to do, obviously, these kinds of physical restraints. But I was getting thrown around a lot by kids, and that was actually when I started to try to beef up a little bit for this job at the behest of my supervisor.
And what was the exact title of this job?
Residential counselor.
Okay.
That was my first job title, but...
You don't think that in education, beefing up is going to be part of the job requirements?
You wouldn't think so. But why did I mention that? Because I felt like that had a point. Oh, because I was a smaller guy, I realized that it was important for me to come up with other strategies to deal with disputes. Because there were some, like, big guys who worked there, right? And, like, they were kind of like heavies, like bouncers, you know? Yes. And they had no problem going to the physical thing because they were big and they could physically restrain kids. But I couldn't always do that.
That's their arena.
That's their, and there were a lot of people. This was kind of the other sick thing. There was a lot of people who were attracted to the job for that reason.
Did you fight growing up? Were you a fighter?
Never.
Okay.
Never.
So this was totally new to you with this job.
Yes, I've been in one fight in my life. I was very drunk. It was with a friend. His name was Kevorkian. It was a weird. Wow. It was a weird situation. And it was like a fake fight. It wasn't even a real fight because neither of us had ever been in a fight before.
So you were just impersonating what you thought fighters should be doing in a fight? Like,
no.
Did you pull out the Irish like fists of fury? I don't know what those.
It was like
bending fists are.
It might have looked like that, but we were in college. We had been drinking and we were outside talking civilly. I said, "Have you ever been in a fight?" And he said, "No." "Neither have I." And then he said, "What do you think it's like?" And, our inhibitions were lowered to the point where we said, "Let's give it a try.
Let's try it."
So we wound up...
What could go wrong?
We wound up hurting each other a little bit. And
all right.
There was some blood. And then we decided, that's silly.
Who won? Did you chew any ears?
It was a draw.
Okay.
It was a complete draw. He hit me.
Did anyone fight dirty?
No, it was one punch each.
Okay.
And then we realized fighting is stupid.
That hurts.
Yeah. So... so no, I was not.
So you're not a fighter, but you got into education presumably to help young people or to help yourself. Was it just for money, or was this your passion?
I was becoming more concerned with like the world around me. I was in college when I started this job, and I had a history teacher who was very liberal. I was liberal at the time too, and learned a lot about how the state takes care of people at this place. I was starting to think like it was important for me to give something or to see the world, the larger picture. And I'd also done an internship just like in the year before working at this job with a film producer who was also very active politically in Massachusetts and had done a lot with the Department of Education there. So I said, I gotta get involved. And if you're like a young college kid and you want to get involved and help people, who do you work for? Either a charity or the government.
Yeah, usually the state. Did you have an upbringing that made you feel that way? I feel like a lot of people have liberal guilt. They feel guilty for having a comfortable upbringing, and then they want to give back and they want to go to those rough neighborhoods or something. Was that sort of your inspiration?
Both my parents were pretty conservative, and I developed this liberal guilt in college. I was like, well, I'm so white and upper middle class. I should really help somebody,
Yeah.
And you're right. That is this idea of taking responsibility for other people. Or being the steward of all these less fortunate, it causes a lot of problems. Like it's a nice sentiment to start with, to want to help people.
Yeah.
But we've seen that it can also get pretty out of control, and you can also use the good intentions of young kids like me in this job for something that's a little bit more malevolent, and that's what happened.
We're talking with Brett Veinotte. Check out his website, schoolsucksproject.com, and we will return with some of your questions from the chat room. This is PNN.
MineThings.com is a fun online game that pits you against people around the world to mine for scarce resources. Do business in a capitalist economy with virtually mined gold, tax-free. It doesn't require a big time commitment. Your little mining robot guy works whether you're logged in or not. It costs nothing to play, but you can buy bonuses. They even accept bitcoins. Go to MineThings.com, use coupon code FTL, and double your mining speed. It's free. MineThings.com.
Since time began, tyrants have taken aim at personal liberties. Now there's a movie that aims back.
The government has no more right to tell us what to put in our bodies than they have to take our guns or tell us what books we can read.
6 drug police were eaten by bears while raiding a marijuana farm.
On your knees, you dirty hippie! Jesus. On your knees! What's the problem, officer?
Today, many cops who enforce pot laws do so only because it provides them with cushy jobs, good benefits, and a chance to push people around.
I was an undercover narcotics officer. The drug war is nothing but a farce.
The Second Amendment says you gotta keep you and your gat intact.
Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. A film by Michael W. Dean and Nima Badati.
DVD available now at gunsandweed.com or on Amazon. That's gunsandweed.com. Makes the perfect gift. Remember, that's gunsandweed.com.
Here's a chance to do a little activism while you're cruising Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. Between the LOL cats, the recipes, the hot girls, and the inspirational sunrise memes, Free Talk Live's posts pass by your newsfeed. Like them, comment. It gives us more exposure. If you don't see our posts, click like at facebook.freetalklive.com and then hover over it to click Get Notifications. It's an easy way to spread the ideas of liberty a bit further. I know you're busy, but you can spare that 1/10 of a calorie it takes to click on something. Facebook.freetalklive.com. Do you love coffee as much as I love coffee? Here's a delicious way to drink the best of the best coffee and make a difference 1 cup at a time. We've partnered with Command Island Coffee Roasters for BuzzBox Coffee, and you can try a pound for free. All you do is cover shipping. It's organic, shade-grown, 1% Arabica grade. 10% of future purchases help our efforts to give the gift of human freedom through at least 100 microloans via World Vision. For more information, go to coffee.freetalklive.com.
Now that you download the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM, you may want to help expose other great programs. In doing so, you'll find resources at promote.lrn.fm, including a free bumpers you can print out and distribute banners for your website, as well as files will allow you to make your own custom banners and graphics. Visit promote.lrn.fm and help bring new listeners to the Liberty Radio Network. That promote LRN.fm.
Move to the Shire.
Move to the Shire around who take liberty as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people charging authority. I thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I want to be around people like me who got it, and when I got here, I knew there was nowhere else to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who are actually working, doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reason. .com.
You can put the Liberty Radio Network on the air in your area. Visit broadcast.lrn.fm to learn how. Broadcast.lrn.fm.
443-424-8347. That is the number to connect and chat with Brett Veinotte and Derek J. We are the hosts tonight of Peace News Now, a show that comes to you twice a week live from LRN.FM, talking about the stories of peaceful resistance. Now, tonight's a little bit of a different... We're going in depth with one of the co-hosts of an LRN.FM produced show called The School Sucks Project, or The School Sucks Podcast, by Brett Veinotte. And the website is is project.
Yes.
It's also called, it's a podcast. But you have video as well, don't you?
Yeah, we got a YouTube channel, School Sucks, username School Sucks Podcast.
Right. So people can check that out. And you've got some of the greatest videos. You spend some time editing videos down, not just from your podcasts, but from the greatest history lesson ever told, or what was that
That's
called?
a better. It's the Underground History of American Education, but I like the greatest history lesson ever. That's an idea for a title for something.
Yeah, and I just listened to an entertaining acoustic a cappella song that you did across continents. That was something worth checking out as well. You've got a variety of videos. It's not the dry type of, hey, why don't I tune into an MIT classroom and listen to some professor at a whiteboard. You're actually got music and all kinds of entertainment to enrich people's lives and their brains.
Yeah. I say, if you want 10 minutes of somebody's time, I think you should be able to teach them a couple of things. Because you can't, how many things are you really going to internalize and remember if something is like really, really dense? You might have to watch it a few times. So hey, let me entertain you while you learn 2 things. That's my goal. So laugh 3 times, learn 2 things, go on to the next thing you got to do.
Well, I think you do an excellent job. So we were talking about who you are before this podcast even came about, and you were in education, but you weren't doing very much educating.
No. For the first year and a half that I had this job, I was really frustrated with the work that I had to do. It was very much grunt work, and I did start getting bigger, and that was helpful. But it wasn't the kind of but I didn't want to do hands-on work with kids like that. I didn't want to be physical and aggressive or responding to aggression with physical force. It really just wasn't enjoyable. It was very stressful.
So what did you have in a picture in your mind, like Dead Poets Society type? I'll sit at the top of the classroom, and all these kids will just love listening to me, and they won't act out of turn or anything. I won't have to restrain anyone. What was your envision?
Well, this is what I started to picture. I said, that's what I really want. Because when I didn't have any credentials or really any skills, I had to start at the bottom of this school.
Yeah.
But after 6 months, they started to promote me. It was a private school, so you could work through the ranks pretty quickly. And the change in my job was I was made an outdoor educator. Better job title and much better job, because now once a week I would get to take kids either skiing or kayaking or hiking, and getting these kids out of that environment and out into the wilderness, the world of difference that it made.
Were these special types of kids? Do they have special needs?
Yeah, they were often had a special education classification, IEP, which is.
Because I'll tell you, I didn't want to go outside when I was in school, and I was not what some schools would classify as special needs, but I did not want to go and play outside for school. That would have been torture. But you said these kids liked it? They wanted to go and ski and stuff?
We would ski, and I would get paid.
That's not learning. How did you? Why did they get to ski?
But learning is a lot of things, right?
Okay.
So this was actually one of the best parts of the job, because in school you can be like, I'm the toughest kid in the world, right? But you learn a lot about yourself when you're thrown into a river.
Yeah, that's true.
And there was a lot of emotional learning and dealing with challenges, and so
it's real life learning.
Life is learning, right?
Yeah.
So you can learn anywhere. I think a place that it's particularly hard to learn in is a school, right? In a classroom. That's the trick. But once we got these kids outside and they were in an environment where suddenly they felt comfortable challenging themselves, because they didn't have like a history of failure. Like in school, they didn't behave, they didn't like to go. So their history in school was, you're dumb. You need to be controlled, and being evaluated and judged and all the carrots and sticks stuff. But now they get outside, they're in a fresh environment, and suddenly they're enthusiastic about challenging themselves. So it was fantastic, and their behavior was totally different. You got to see the impact that the school environment was having on their behavior. Now, these kids had troubled past, right? Like they might have come from broken homes. They might have had parents who were drug addicts or abusive situations, foster care.
Yeah.
A lot of abuse happens there. So they had numerous challenges, but they had always failed, in school. So to get them out of school and make a learning environment out of the world, which is the best learning environment, was actually really fantastic. And it really, I had quit the job and gone and worked at a ski resort, as a marketing guy, because I was like, I've got to use my degree, So after a year and a half of working at this place, I graduated from college. had a communications degree. So I quit and I went and did that for a few months. Then 9/11 happened and they said, we don't need people because no one's coming here, no one's going to travel. So I wound up back at the school working in education and outdoor education. So now I didn't have that residential counselor job anymore.
Okay.
So now I was in the school and I was working with kids in small groups as a teacher's aide, and I was still doing the outdoor education like twice a week.
So it was just getting sweeter for you. When did you start to did you ever become a real teacher? Like, I'm Mr. Veinott, and you write your name up on the board, and they come into your classroom every day, 5 days a week. Did you ever have an environment like that?
Yes. So yeah, after it was interesting. There was this specialized campus for kids who had particularly severe behavior issues, and most of them were the results of sexual abuse. So I went from being a teacher's aide to the head teacher of this campus.
Whoa.
In one conversation. Right, because I had proved that I was competent. Like, I'd been there long enough. The supervisor who said, hey, you got to hit the gym, he also did a good job training me of like how to deal with situations, how to be assertive, which is really important.
Yeah.
And do we get a phone call? Is that a phone?
No, we have the walkie-talkie. We have a two-way. Part of the activism that happens here. Oh, we might have gotten a little call. I didn't notice a little thing that popped up on the screen. But no, we that little beep that some listeners may have heard if they're tuned in, extra special, then you heard a little two-way beep. That's a tool that some of the activists here in Keene use to communicate with one another if like hardcore activism is happening. I need to know about it right away, especially while we're live. You know, if there's something going on in the square and Peace News Now can break that story, I want to do that for the audience. So, no, that's a two-way. You can ignore any buzzes that come through. Typically, the thing that comes through is like people looking for a ride or, you know, someone needs a favor. But that's not here or there.
All right.
So please continue. You were saying you were guided by this man who told you to beef up. He had recommendations for you as well about how to climb the ladder.
Well, he understood that, like, being assertive, I think, and projecting confidence is really important when working with that population of kids. I mean, that was absolutely right. He wasn't just like, yeah, put on 50 pounds, here's some creatine and some protein shakes, and if they do anything, restrain them, right? He said that was one part of the job, but part of it was, you know, presenting the way you present and how you assert yourself. Because I was, in addition to being small, I was relatively meek because I'd never been exposed to anything like this before in my life. And when I started this job, I was quite scared of the kids, and that didn't work, right? I didn't have to have the kids scared of me, but me being scared of them, that was not a good situation for anybody. So that started to change, and I'd worked myself up to a place by 2002 where I asked for a lead teacher job.
There it is. We'll continue the story of Brett Veinotte becoming successful podcaster at LRN.FM when PNN returns.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring Simon to the rally.
Walk with me.
Well, I'm comfortable here, actually.
Whoa. Hey, who do you think you are?
Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today. You ain't gonna make it. Wait a minute.
Forget it. Whoa. Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running?
Because you scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this?
Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com.
This is the Central Scrutinizer. I steal your labor by force through taxation.
My job is to spy on you and keep you from hearing things like the Freedom Fiends. I especially do not want you to
torrent Freedom Fiends episodes to keep them drone-proof. Do not go to freedomfiends.com and click on the torrent link and learn how to torrent Fiends archives. Do not go to freedomfiends.com
and click on the torrent
link and learn how to torrent Fiends archives. Do not go to
freedomfiends.com and click on the torrent
link and learn how to torrent Fiends archives.
When you're coping with bad news and the news media come calling, and they will, don't clam up. As notorious political figures find out the hard way, the cover-up can be worse than the crime. So get out in front of unfavorable news about your company, your group, or organization, or yourself. The sooner you confront a negative story, the sooner it will be over. Responding as quickly to negative stories as you do to positive ones enhances your credibility. Hiding embarrassing information or lying will do more damage than damage control. Never stonewall. Tell your side of the story, use specifics, and detail what corrective action has already been taken. Respond in kind. If the issue is emotional, don't sound like a cold, unemotional Mr. Spock. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Instead of just listening, you can also watch. See the Liberty Radio Network's Keene, New Hampshire-based live shows via our studio cam at cam.lrn.fm. Plus, you'll still be able to listen to the Liberty Radio Network via the cam feed in high quality 24/7, even when there's no live show being produced in our Keene studio. But wait, there's more. Our chat room is built into the cam page so you can interact with other listeners online. Listen, watch, and chat, all free at cam.lrn.fm. That's cam.lrn.fm.
We know you're out there. We can feel you now. We know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. We don't know the future. We aren't here to tell you how this is going to end. We're here to tell you how it's going to begin. We're going back to editing the next edition of Freedom's Phoenix digital magazine now, where we are telling the people what you don't want them to know. We're showing them a world without you, a world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries, a world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice we leave to you. Subscribe at freedomsphoenixeasy.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenixeasy.com.
You can connect with the Liberty Radio Network via our Facebook page at facebook.lrn.fm. That's facebook.lrn.fm.
Hello? Welcome back to Peace News Now. We are live this Sunday, June 8th, 2014. Joining us in studio is Brett Veinotte of SchoolSucksProject.com.
And I'm just going ahead and posting this to my social network so they know people can come and join us.
That's smart. Yeah, you know, the best place to watch this show, not everyone knows this, but we broadcast video as well as audio. The audio you can always find at lrn.fm. That's our home. But did you know you can catch video and a chat room of this show at peacenewsnow.com/live? Every Sunday and Tuesday. That's the place to catch it. And you can even interact with our guests. In fact, we have one caller on Skype right now. Nathan is joining us on Skype from Texas. Nathan, how are you?
Nathan.
Okay, we disconnected from Nathan. Now we are reconnected. Hello? Nathan, can you hear us?
Yeah, but there's a lot of static in the background.
Okay, well, what are your thoughts?
I'm sorry. Say again.
That's okay. We'll take your call later. Sorry about that, Nathan. We'll try and get whatever's worked out. We're joined by Brett Veinotte, who's telling us how he came to be this podcaster. And then we're going to go through in the second hour some news stories with Brett, and we're going to get his thoughts on some of the things that are going on in the world of peaceful resistance. But I wanted to have Brett on because education is sort of the ultimate peaceful resistance. It doesn't take any violence to teach someone something. You don't have to use violence to teach someone something.
It's possible without violence.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And it's not as... It can be seditious without people realizing how seditious it is. If you just teach someone something, like there's like hidden knowledge that people... I don't know, people get a little crazy about occult stuff, like ancient hidden knowledge, but there's this actual hidden knowledge, like what the controllers do, the people who govern the rest of us. They've got knowledge about human ownership, and human ownership farms, like how they farm, and I'm using that word loosely, but yeah, they have farms. They have like tax farms, and explaining that to people could give us a freer, more peaceful future.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of hope for your podcast doing that for the young people.
Sure, yeah, I mean, you make a great point about the farming. I mean, if you don't believe that these things go on and these kinds of like conspiracies of the scientific management of human beings exist, go to a chicken farm. Just go to a chicken farm and observe, okay? Chicken's IQ is 4 or 5. In its lifetime, maybe it can produce 350 eggs and 3 pounds of meat. If it's a meat bird, I don't even think birds that produce eggs and meat are the same.
No, they're not the same.
All right, so you're talking like 300 eggs or a few pounds of...
Layers and broilers.
And if you go to the farm, you'll see how much thought has been put into controlling them, keeping them where they are, and getting the maximum productive output out of them for somebody's benefit. Our average IQ is like 100, and we can produce a lot more than a few hundred eggs. In fact, if it wasn't for us, we couldn't even have those chicken farms. So do people really think that nobody ever put that kind of thought, the thought that went into chickens, into them? You know, so
yeah, but it's a scary thought. It's something that people don't want to. They don't want to think about it because they've been probably ignorant of it for most of their lives, and waking up to it can be jostling.
Yeah.
Was it jostling for you, just to consider that, or were you always kind of aware?
Yeah. I was woken up to it in college by a very liberal history professor, you know, who said, you know, it's not the Disney version that you guys have been getting in school up until now, and he introduced us to like Noam Chomsky and Howard Zinn, and even I think that's even where I found the great book by James Lowen called Lies. My teacher told me this was a book that I read in college. So yeah, that was like a real waking up as to how the world, learning about how the world actually works and what people out there are actually doing. But eventually I learned what we're supposed to be doing, which is also occulted in school, and that's thinking critically, right? Critical thinking is absent from most of school. You're kind of given things and asked to regurgitate it back eventually, and that's how it works. So to be able to really learn that there's a process of critical thinking is very, very helpful, because if you make it explicit, you can remember to do it. You can remember that it needs to be applied to personal situations, professional situations, creative situations, exploratory situations. So there's a method.
Do you ever just veg, like mentally veg? Do you have like TV show, like reality TV that you watch to turn off the critical thinking part of your brain, or are you just always on?
No, I'm not always on.
All right.
No,
so
I try to not be on. You know, in fact, I was last summer, about a year ago, I spent the summer in Connecticut with like the smartest guy I know. This guy named Richard Grove, and he does this Peace Revolution podcast, and he has a site called Tragedy and Hope. He's a genius. And what I found, I said, this guy works so hard. He makes these like 10, 12, 15-hour podcasts. I found out at 5 o'clock every night he watches like trash TV and says, I want to see what's going on. I want to. So it's not like total vegging out, because it's kind of like, let's see.
He's still studying.
He's still studying, right? But it was nice because we would sit there a couple nights a week and we would just laugh at like The Soup, you know that show? Yeah. So we I mean, I think that downtime is really, really important, and you know, sometimes a nice little game on the phone or a TV show. I'm real into Game of Thrones and a few others.
Okay, Game of Thrones is your sin right now? Yeah. Or what kind of phone game do you play?
I like Words with Friends. That's a little...
It's interactive. That's a good one, because you're not just... I don't know what the Candy Crush... I don't play any of those games. I don't have enough room on my phone, but it's nice to veg out. I can... empathize. I like to listen to real trashy pop albums and just dance around the room. Like, I think that's a nice brainless activity. That gets you, you know, it gets more mental clarity. At the end of vegging out and doing something completely stupid, I feel a little bit smarter. Isn't there something paradoxical about that?
No, I can totally see, because you need to unwind, you know, and you need to sometimes just get a clean slate. Mine is Rubber Band Man, you know, by the Detroit Spinners. You know,
no, I don't know what that is.
Oh, what a happy song.
We'll play it during the next break.
Absolutely. So yeah, I get up and dance, or I put headphones on and I'll do a dance.
Cool.
And that's good for you. People should do that. Sometimes I love a long car trip where, you know, you get tired of listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
I just like, do I have any CDs still?
Yeah, do I have any CDs from the 90s?
Yeah, and I'll put them in and have a good time.
Nirvana.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think during the next break we should get a video of you doing whatever kind of dance you do to that Rubberman song. But we got a question from the chat room.
Sure.
Mr. Veinott, as an educator, how do you encourage? And that's just the end of the question. John Galt asks, how do you encourage? I don't think, I don't know, what they could be a little more specific. I think, how do you encourage students to want to learn? I think is what they're asking, or just encourage them in general.
Well, that's a great question, because when I was in school, one of the things that was frustrating is that you really, once they were in that environment, it was very hard to stimulate people to want to learn. They have
inertia, and there's no momentum. They just have to be pushed.
But how does being pushed feel, right?
Awful.
So you've come to school with this idea that you've just completely resigned from the idea that there's going to be anything valuable, or that I'm going to have a good time here. So the reason why, and I can tie this into the previous narrative, is the reason why I took this job as the lead teacher at this private school. It was a very difficult campus. I said, if I do well here, excuse me, I would like you to consider me for this history teaching job at this other school that you run. And they did, right? So I put in 2 years at the bad head teacher job that I was talking about. Then they moved me to another school in Manchester Center, Vermont, a nice resort town, and I got to teach history. And I was like, now I am the guy from Dead Poets Society.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm in a nice town, and these are kids who don't have as many urgent challenges.
Is it like wooden walls and columns and stuff?
No, it wasn't a nice school, but it was like a better environment. No more restraints. No more hands-on with the kids.
Oh boy.
Yeah, which is like, so that's where I was in 2004. It
shouldn't be a step up, but okay, that is.
But in 2004, it was like a huge sigh of relief, right, to not have to deal with that physical stuff anymore.
Well, John Galt clarified about his question.
Yeah.
He said, how do you encourage individualism when surrounded by conformity?
How do you encourage?
Slightly different question. If you want to think about it, we've got a moment. You can dance during the break and meditate on that question.
I would say the first thing. Could people not see that hand? I would say that the first thing that people should do as teachers is stop asking everybody to do the same thing.
Very interesting. All right, more thoughts from Brett Veinotte. He'll be joining us for the remainder of the program. This is Peace News Now.
Ross Ulbricht was arrested by the FBI in 2013 and charged with victimless crimes in relation to allegedly operating the Bitcoin-based Silk Road black market. He has been in a prison cell awaiting trial ever since. If he did it, he's a hero for making the black market a safer place. If he did not, he's a man wrongfully accused. Either way, if you love freedom and want to end the war on drugs, Ross and his family need your support. You can learn more and help fund his defense at freeross.org. That's freeross.org.
Free Talk Live. Is it ever appropriate to use violence to oppose the state? I can't say I would blame somebody for wanting to meet the SS at the front door with the clubs and the guns or whatever they could to defend their family. I wouldn't blame them.
Gandhi went to jail. What if he had met the English at the door with shotguns instead of going to jail? I don't want to talk about this anymore. Because, it's just madness. I don't need to be playing these scenarios out where what am I going to do if this happens? Or what am I going to do if that happens?
It's not a good mindset.
I'm going to get the chainsaw out and cut a couple of trees across the driveway, and I'm going to sit out there with a 50-cal bullet, and I'm going to pick them off! I'm going to pick them off!
It'll drive you crazy.
Nuts! I mean, you're going to die from high blood pressure and a lot of shiny guns. I'm a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. Coppers!
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Wolverine! Brrr. The 3 most important things you can do for LRN.FM are: 1. Let your friends know you're listening to LRN.
To hear him play at a club outside of town, I was so surprised, I was hypnotized. Sound this cat.
Give $5 a month to the AMP program at amp.lrn.fm. You likely buy all kinds of things online.
down my head. Hurry now, don't be late, 'cause we ain't got time to die. You and me, we're going out, catch a better sound. Guaranteed to blow your mind, so high you won't come down. It's all yourself, man, you'll never heard a sound like a man, you're bound to lose control. Man, start your jam. Let's do this outside. Everything he does seems to come out right. Once I went to hear them play at a club outside town, I was so surprised, I was hypnotized by the sound his head put down. When I saw this short fat guy with a band between his toes, yeah, I'm so hot, I said, hey, got down when it finally reached his nose. You never heard a sound like a man, you're bound to lose control. Those hands on your jam. Got that rubber band on his toe. You get it, wiggle it up around his nose. Guaranteed to blow your mind. Playing all the music, yeah.
Welcome back to a very completely serious show. I am here dancing with Brett Veinotte to Rubber Band Man by the Spinners. That was a good time, Brett. Thanks. That was our example of how to veg with your brain and get more mental clarity through dancing.
Absolutely.
That was a lot of fun. Thanks. So we only have this one segment to wrap up your whole life story. So bring us to where you're at with the podcast.
Okay, so yeah, I found myself in this really difficult situation in this new job, 2004 to 2006, teaching history, where I thought everything was going to be great, you know. And I found like I was just getting the kids too late, you know, their attitudes about education.
They've been broken.
Yeah, so that was, you know, that goes back to John's question about enthusiasm, right, or individuality. It was very hard to feel efficacious in that job. And in 2006, I left and I started tutoring, like SAT tutoring, academic counseling, college consulting, and I learned a lot and started to get much closer to the public schools between 2006 and 2009. And by 2009, I had actually started a tutoring company in January of that year. And by the summer, I had had enough of the schools, and I said, it's time to find a way to vent. And that was when I began the podcast. I'd actually been working with Wes Bertrand of Complete Liberty, being an occasional co-host on his show.
You started with him?
I started with Wes.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
School Sucks is a spin-off of Wheels Off Liberty, or not Wheels Off Liberty, Complete Liberty podcast. I've made that mistake twice, and it is so unacceptable.
It's acceptable by me. I wouldn't know, because I was before. Wheels Off Liberty was before my time. Tell us what that is.
Wheels Off Liberty was a comedy show that these two guys from Oklahoma did, and the fact that anyone could confuse it with Complete Liberty, which is a very cerebral, serious, and dense show, but I've made that mistake twice. I think maybe they both have the word liberty.
Well, that's okay. So you decided this is a bit cathartic for you. You enjoyed doing podcasting. You're like, I have a knack for this. Let me go at it. And you decided, when did you begin?
August 2009.
Okay. And so, wow, you've been at it for
almost
6 years?
5 years, yeah.
Yeah, well, oh yeah, that shows how I can do math. I'm glad you're here.
Yep.
So, how's it been going?
I love it.
Yeah?
I think it is because now it's not forcing anything on anybody. You know, the show is there, and I'm only talking to people who want to hear me, which after 12 years in education is so refreshing.
It really seems like that's how sort of education should be, is the students seek out the teachers, not just like teachers and students get randomly thrown into rooms together.
Yes, absolutely. So, and you know, the other thing too, like I've gotten frustrated a couple times about, you know, the show not growing fast enough, and what I've said to myself is, you know, I can post something now and reach as many people in the next 48 hours as I could maybe in a career. Of teaching.
Isn't that huge?
Yeah.
What kind of students do you look for? Or do you consider yourself a student as well?
Well, I definitely consider myself a student too. I can't believe how much I've learned while doing the show. And sometimes if I listen to the old, I'm like, wow, I didn't know much then, but I thought I knew a lot. But comparatively, yeah, I've learned a lot in the last 4 or 5 years doing the show. And originally, I was really hoping we could attract high school kids with our clever school sucks marketing.
Yeah.
But then
it seems like that would be the major target.
Yeah.
Is high school students, because they've got their whole life ahead of them. They're smart enough and independent enough to do their own thing, and they've learned enough to know that their teachers have been lying to them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like the target, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are they your main demographic?
It actually is people in their early to mid-20s.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think they're more. That's just who's looking for podcasts. I think younger people are more interested in YouTube, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to try and crack into YouTube. And
which you've done.
Yeah, and really start trying to figuring it out. What we're still trying to do though is figure out how to use it to reach those kids, because it's hard when you you can get 100 million views on YouTube by filming a woman scared by a bug in 16 seconds on your phone.
Yeah, but how much is that going to affect their life?
Exactly. So the formula for successful YouTube videos is frustrating, because if I'm putting something on YouTube, I want to put a lot of work into the production, and I think sometimes it's like bigger or more involved than it needs to be, and sometimes I think I forget how to speak a language that would resonate with young people, because I've just been doing it for so long. It's hard to go back to square one. Like in episode 1, I knew that I was talking in a way like, hey, here's something for people who've never heard anything like this before, and we're going to start slow and we're going to take it from there. But 300 episodes later, it's sometimes it's hard to do that presentation still. So I'm still trying to find the right way to hit YouTube effectively.
Tell me about you as a podcaster. Do you have someone who you envision when you're talking into the microphone? Like, is it your Aunt May, or like who are you picturing when you're talking to these people? When you're producing a new episode of the School Sucks podcast?
I picture just listeners that I've interacted with.
Yeah,
really.
Like past people who you've actually met.
Yeah, like, so-and-so from Porkfest, or people that I know are really great fans of the show, and I just picture them kind of in a room, and I'm just talking to them.
Do you only picture it in your mind, or some podcasters and radio broadcasters actually have a photograph of someone that sits by their microphone? Does that help you at all? Have you ever done that?
That's an interesting idea.
It's kind of cool.
It's a great idea for a studio to have like a wall of super fans.
Yeah, right. Like, oh yeah, and we're talking to Jimmy over there in Oklahoma, who wrote in last week. If you've got their picture, it's kind of nice to be able to make eye contact, so to speak, with them.
Yeah, like mail me an 8x12.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's not creepy at all.
And there was actually a movie where a guy did this. He was. You ever see the King of Comedy with Robert De Niro?
No, I haven't. I should have seen that.
He was a little crazy, and he wanted to be like the next Johnny Carson, and he would set up a studio with dummies in his basement, and he would paste all his favorite celebrities' faces on these mannequins.
Crazy.
In his mother's basement.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to, I don't want it to go that far.
So you want to be that guy?
No, I want to keep King of Comedy in mind. So if I do start buying mannequins, I know I'm over the edge.
I'll watch out for you.
Okay, thank you.
So where's the future of this going? You have you just started a series. I just checked out your website. You've got a new series that's beginning now, and I've made a note of it, but I've lost my notes. So.
I have 3 series going on at once right now. The newest one is called Autonomy Through Agorism, where we're exploring these different agorist topics. So we've been doing permaculture for a while, which I think is very, very valuable. We're about to switch to intentional communities, and then we're going to talk about Bitcoin. And that series just can have so many facets, because agorism is so, there's so much to agorism.
That is it. That's the things you just mentioned are like the gold star of freedom. That's if people could just embrace agorism and permaculture just to start, imagine how different the world would be. One of the guests I recently had on the program invented something called permacredits, which is like a way to unite Bitcoin and smart contracts and permaculture.
Love it.
It's like the future.
Yeah, and permaculture is really self-sufficiency, right? So what do we do on the show? Do we even talk about school? Do we talk about how school sucks? Not really. That's boring. It takes, we did it for 100 episodes.
And everybody knows that.
And everybody already knows that.
Yeah.
So, now that we're all on the same page, let's talk about what to do about it. So the Autonomy Through Agorism series is really about, even if these aren't things we can all do, at least we can start thinking about new ways to be more self-sufficient, more independent, and more free of the state and really the spider web that we're all kind of born into. And the other things that I have going on right now, Wes Bertrand, who I mentioned, he and I are doing a series on self-esteem using the 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem book. We've done 9 parts in that series. And that's also something you're not going to learn about in school. School will use words like self-esteem. Have self-esteem by doing what we tell you and getting A's. That's self-esteem. That
was always confusing in school because they always talk about, don't bully other people, build up their self-esteem, but we don't really talk much about how to have good self-esteem or what it is.
Yeah. So we invested, so the self-esteem you get in school is good job. You should have high self-esteem.
Sticker.
You please me.
Yeah.
We've done 15 hours of shows now on that topic, so it's pretty involved, and there's a lot to it. And Wes and I have a tendency to get together and say, okay, let's do an hour, and 3 hours later we're done because we're friends and we talk a lot. And the other series, another thing you don't learn in school, history. So I've been having Thaddeus Russell, the author of A Renegade History of the United States, on my show, and he's been really challenging my audience and challenging me in some very interesting ways because he's kind of a left libertarian guy.
Yeah.
And so all of these things going on at once now, how are we programming ourselves, or how are we programmed younger through the self-esteem series, and how are we programmed culturally is what we're exploring through this history series. So that's what we're doing.
Very exciting. And I will continue to follow both at lrn.fm and schoolsucksproject.com. Coming up, we're going to be talking about the 25-year anniversary of Tiananmen Square, plus a hacker sends the government an invoice for the time he spent in prison. Coming up.
Free Press Publications is an independent alternative media and publishing company founded in June 2009 with the mission of ensuring a free press for the freedom movement, and is committed to spreading the message of peace, freedom, love, and liberty. FPP also gives new authors an avenue for publishing freedom-oriented material. FPP brings you daily news and commentary at fpp.cc, as well as weekly news in the FPP Freedom Minute and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio at fppradio.com. The monthly newspaper FPP News at news.fpp.cc, and books at shop.fpp.cc. Find FPP online at fpp.cc. That's fpp.cc, as in Creative Commons.
Imagine someone in your community getting in their car, turning on the radio, and hearing the Liberty Radio Network. You can make that vision a reality with your own micro radio station. Visit broadcast.lrn.fm to learn how you can put our programs on the air in your area. You can have LRN.FM running around the clock, and you can even add in your own local shows. Building a radio station is simple, but programming isn't. That's where LRN.FM comes in. Learn more at broadcast.lrn.fm. That's broadcast.lrn.fm.
Have you ever wanted to move to the land of Libpair? Libertarian paradise, where there's fun for everyone that doesn't initiate force on others, fun for the kids, parties for the adults, buy and sell in silver or Bitcoin, scenic hikes and gun shoots, speeches to educate us all. The Porcupine Freedom Festival is Libpair in the White Mountains of New Hampshire for a week this summer, June 22nd to 29th. Get your tickets now before there's no more room. PorcFest, the event of a lifetime. PorcFest.com.
Hey, Nathan, can you hear me clearly? Nathan, can you hear me? Hello? Oh, that was my fault. You were muted. Nathan, can you hear me?
Barely.
Barely. Interesting. Okay, but you can hear me. And am I staticky?
Yeah, it's all staticky and distorted. I can hear you're talking, and it's at a reasonable volume, but it's all kind of distorted. And
I had the effects. I had the effects up. Does this sound a little better? took the effects away.
Sorry, I can't make out your words, just that you're speaking. Am I coming in clear?
I think it's like connections.
Yeah, try it, but it's probably in the laptop. Like, ask him if that makes any difference if you just.
Okay, did that make any difference? I just fidgeted with the connections on my laptop.
Well, there's a lot more static now.
There's more static now, okay.
Try turning it without unplugging it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can barely make out what you're saying. I can just hear that you're speaking.
That's okay. I really appreciate your help. Are you making anything out now?
Sorry.
I have a different cable.
I can stay on the line if you want. If
Please
you
do.
want to diagnose or repair or anything, but I can't understand what you're saying.
Just messaged him, please stand by. I'm going to change that cable.
I called the Skype testing service, by the way, and that seemed fine, so I'm guessing it's on your end.
Okay, I have changed the cable that connects my audio to you. Is that any better?
Nope, same thing.
Same thing? Grr. Static. I don't know why there would be static. I'm not hearing any static.
It's not even just, it's static, and also your voice is kind of flanged, or I don't know what it is, like you're in a barrel or something.
Have you done Skype on this computer before?
Yeah, I've done Skype on this computer. This is how I normally take my calls, but when I moved my studio, something got messed up.
Check the only other thing I can think of is to check the control panel and see if there's like multiple audio things.
Oh, yeah.
Ta-da. It almost kind of sounds like when I tried to use the line in on my computer's sound card, when there's like a lot of white noise in the background.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you staying on. I'm going to try and change stuff and keep asking you if it fixed it. Nothing there.
I can hear Derek a little better than Brett. I can't even tell if that's Brett or not, but I can kind of barely make out Derek.
Brett has not been speaking.
Who's that?
This is Derek J.
Oh, man. This is bad. I wonder what the problem is.
Like, look at my levels. Everything looks normal and good.
Yeah.
Everything is good. And then here's a... When I play, it's playing.
Make a test call. See if it's on his end.
Oh, how do I make a test call?
Should be right at the bottom there.
Make a free test call, yeah.
That'll tell you what you're putting into Skype.
Oh, yeah. Sweet. Okay.
Hello, welcome to Skype call testing service. After the beep, please record a message. Afterwards, your message will be played back to you.
Hey, this is Derek J. recording a message into Skype to see if this is coming through clearly.
Hey
Hey, this is Dr. J recording a message into Skype to see if this is coming through clearly.
If you are able to hear your own voice, then you have configured Skype correctly. If you hear this message, but not your own voice, then something is wrong with your audio recording settings. Please check your microphone and microphone settings or visit skype.com for more help. Thank you for using the Skype call testing.
This is the Onion News Network.
Welcome back. This is Peace News Now. We're live Sunday, June 8th. It's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thanks. That's Brett Veinotte of SchoolSucksProject.com. First time in studio. First time on the show, actually. So it's good to be with you.
I'm glad to be here. Derek, folks who don't know this, Derek is my most popular guest ever on School Sucks podcast.
That's true. Part of the credit has to go to Michelle Seven, who co-hosted with me as well, though. That was I know that part of it was her fault. So we're going to be talking in this hour. In the first hour, we talked about you, who you are, what your podcast is. You can catch it online at SchoolSucksProject.com. And you've also got your own personal website. Do you want to give that out?
Yeah, I have this site called Edulution, which is just kind of a gathering of, here's a feed from YouTube, here's a feed from the podcast, and just a little information about me, and that's edu-lu-tion.com.
Now, in this segment, I wanted to get into peaceful resistance news, which is what this show typically is, but I also wanted to have commentary from Brett, because you come at things from a slightly different perspective. I'm super into people taking big risks that are gonna, possibly damage their lives forever. Like this guy Weave, who's this hacker in New Jersey who said, "I've had it with this world. I'm gonna do everything that I want to do and take the consequences." And he did. So one of the things that he did as a creative hacker, his real name is Andrew Arraignment, but he goes by Weave, W-E-E-V, on the internet, and he was known through like Anonymous and a couple other big things. Well, last year he was put in jail for the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, this sort of like coverall crime that was invented in the 90s by politicians who knew nothing about computers, and they were just like, well, if someone does something bad with computers, we got to be able to charge them with something, right? So that's what they charged this guy with. But what did he actually do? The hacker Weave figured out that if you go to a certain URL from AT&T, that it will give you all of the information about a particular iPad user. So you get an iPad, you can go and sign in, and there's like a URL up at the top of that page. Well, it has a unique number just for you, just for each iPad user. So what he figured out was, I just start with 1, plus 1, plus 1, plus 1, run it in a loop on this program, and I'll take down all the information that exists from AT&T and all of their iPad users. So he gathered information on over 100,000 different people and their iPads. This included celebrities, and that upset quite a lot of people. But it wasn't really his fault. Yeah, sure, he wrote the program that collected this data, but who put the data out there to begin with? That was AT&T. They weren't charged with any crimes, but Weave was sent to prison. He had a touching speech before going to prison, which I've played on this program before, but now we have an update from Weave. He has now sent the government an invoice for time spent in prison. This article from benswan.com. Andrew Arraignment, a hacker charged with accessing personal data of over 100,000 AT&T iPad subscribers who recently had his conviction overturned, published a letter on Tuesday addressed to the New Jersey District Court, the FBI, and the Department of Justice requesting compensation for the time he spent in prison.
I like it so far.
I saw you raise the mic to your mouth. I didn't know if you had some thoughts on that. Arraignment, an internet security expert who's also known as Weave in several online communities, was convicted in 2012 of identity theft and unauthorized access to computers in 2010. Arraignment's web security group Govt Security had discovered a security vulnerability on AT&T's website that allowed people to acquire the email addresses and ICC ID of iPad users. What is that? An ICC ID is an identifier similar to a serial number that's used to authenticate the SIM card in a user's iPad to the AT&T network. So according to Wired, Arraignment and his associate or co-defendant, Daniel Spittler, found that the security flaw was fairly simple to exploit. And again, this is not their fault. They are just exploiting a weakness that AT&T presented. Where are the penalties for AT&T? Arraignment and Spittler ended up acquiring the CCID and email addresses of as many as 120,000 AT&T subscribers. Now, is that a crime in your mind? First of all, just like let's lay the groundwork here. Has what Weave has done, do you consider that a crime?
No, but I think what is very important is what he does next. And I don't know the answer to that yet, so I'm on the edge of my seat.
Sure, what's he do with the information?
Exactly.
Well, Spittler pleaded guilty while Arraignment underwent a trial. After Arraignment's conviction, he was sentenced to 41 months in jail, followed by 3 years of probation and an order to pay $73,000 in restitution to AT&T.
For exploiting a weak... well, okay, so maybe the problem is the way he went about doing this, right? Because what did he do with the information once he had it?
He just made it public. He just put it out on the internet so anyone could have it.
I wouldn't...
So he made it easier for people to find. Like, you could go and find this information if you typed in the right URL.
But I could go and snoop through somebody's business.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like that either. I mean, it's not the... So there's a job for these people. If you're a sophisticated hacker and you can identify weaknesses and exploit them, well, that's a job. They're paid to do that. There are hackers who are paid by big companies like AT&T to say, you know, what vulnerabilities do we have? Well, he did them a favor, in my opinion. He showed them, this is your vulnerability, and he didn't even charge them. They're charging him now.
But I have URLs that I make available to certain people that other people can't see, right?
Yes.
So I could have said, hey, AT&T, thought I'd let you know I extracted all this information with very little effort, due to a flaw in your design here.
Yes.
And I'd be happy to take it down, and maybe we could talk about because you're not really. I mean, like I provided a service, and maybe we could talk about some kind of compensation for exposing this.
Yeah.
Instead of me making all this information public and kind of further hurting these people.
He's kind of a jerk about it, is what it sounds like.
And I think hackers can be that way because they're...
He's just so mad because AT&T, they're this big, greedy company, and they've been exploiting people. This is probably where he's coming from, right?
Yeah, but so it's kind of like...
He wants to get even.
But it's kind of like the kid getting even with his parents by hitting his teddy bear with a hammer. Like he's turning around and doing something that could be very hurtful to other people.
Yeah.
So I like the idea. I like the guy.
It's not that hurtful. It's not like, I mean, I guess people could use the information to do nasty things, like go to the person's address or go to their home and threaten them. Yeah.
Even your internet history.
Things. Yeah, all that stuff. Well, so what he did afterwards, when he got out of jail, was immediately start a company where his goal is to bet on stocks. So it's I don't know, I'm not a sophisticated trader in the stock market or anything, but I think he has what are those things? A hedge fund.
Oh, yeah.
A hedge fund where the idea is that he's going to identify companies like AT&T who have these weaknesses and bet against them and then exploit the hell out of them. So he would do basically the same thing that he already did with AT&T, except in addition to that, now he's got a hedge fund that bets against the AT&T in that situation. So he's using his hacker skills to not only attack companies, but profit from it and make profit for shareholders.
And sure, and I don't have any problem with that, but I'd still want to know like what his real intention is. Like what's motivating him to do this? Does he really want these companies to do a better job protecting people's private information?
I think he wants more freedom, and I think he wants the world to make a little more sense. In his speech before he went to prison, he said how heartbroken he was that so many inventions have not been invented because of the restrictions of government. Like,
yes,
he's like, you know,
IP.
yeah, he's like so many things that could exist, and he's one of them. You know, he's an engineer, he's a brilliant mind, he can program stuff, and he's seeing the absence that other people don't see. He sees the opportunity cost of these regulations, and he sees inventions that aren't happening because of government, and he's so frustrated, and he wants to shake up the system. So I applaud what he's doing. We've got more coming up on PNN. We're going to talk about a story of a Tiananmen Square, plus a court stenographer who hates his job.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we
So, I stand outside this courthouse today, and I feel like America is in a cultural decline. That I look around the kind of pace and the kind of people that we've had in the past 50 years, and it doesn't match the 50 years previous. I feel like there's something wrong, and in my country there's a problem, and that problem is the feds. They take everybody's freedom and they never give it back. If you want to put a drone in the air, like, how many commercial applications of drones are there? There's a shit ton. If you want to put a drone in the air and have it speak TCAS, the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, you just can't do that. There's no licensing path for the FAA to do this. You're not allowed to innovate. Stop thinking outside the box, Western man. I feel like, you know, we could have laptop batteries that last 100 fucking years, like fucking with beta voltaics, and we can't have this because the NRC says no. There's so many engineers working tirelessly in this country to find the best damn solutions to a given problem, and then they find out that it's against the U.S. code, and that's before fucking things like patents, where attorneys in their subhumanity gleefully lord over people that are trying to contribute something useful to humanity. And I look at all of this, and I'm saying, I'm going to prison for arithmetic. I added 1 to a fucking number on a public web server, and I aggregated this data, and I gave it to a fucking journalist at that man's publication. And this is why I am going to prison. And if they have any soul in their whole body, and they understood what they were doing to the rule of law, to the fucking Bill of Rights, and to the free and open internet, they would die in their own goddamn shame. I feel like Veinott weeping at her father's feet, and I hope that innovation has a wakeful return as fast as possible. There isn't much time left to fix this place. I think we have a very short window before the currency collapses and before this place becomes just some third world country. And there's new Detroits and Birminghams and St. Louis's every year, and we have very little time to manufacture things again and bring our country back to the greatness that it was. And I hope that you're all on my cell block, all the engineers out there. And I'll see you all in federal prison.
your ears. Visit promote.lrn.fm for a free bumper sticker, flyers, banners, graphics, and more. Promote.lrn.fm.
Welcome back to Peace News Now. We just played a clip for those of you who are watching along at peacenewsnow.com/live of Andrew Arraignment, Weave, who courageously, unlike his co-defendant, decided to take his issue to trial, not go and take a plea deal. What are your thoughts on Weave now that you've been introduced to him? You said you like him?
I like that. I like that much more, and I think I understand a little better what he was trying to do. And it is a good, even if I don't agree with all of his tactics, I think what he's asking people to do is imagine a free world as it's applied to technology. You know, like look at all the opportunity costs of the current system, especially the lawyers, and kind of exploiting IP laws and lawyers who are producing nothing, right? They're stopping production, they're stopping innovation, and they're using the state to do it to basically enrich themselves, right? And obviously the state is the origin of that problem, but yeah, I mean, when you have that kind of mind, and I think you're somebody who might have a better idea of what is actually possible, maybe better idea than I do, not knowing that much about that stuff, I could imagine it being more frustrating, and I could understand, the path to more drastic action. Even if I still don't agree with the ultimate action, I could understand how we get put on the path. Like knowing, like we could have this, what do you say, laptop batteries that last 100 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you could see that, like that's just sounds kind of abstract when I just say it, but if you were smart enough in that area to see that process, actually, I know how we could do this, but, we hit the, NRC regulation here, Department of Energy regulation here, some kind of consumer standards regulations along the way, and that would be very frustrating for sure.
Do you encounter that ever? Like, I know you said you're not an engineer, so you don't see these types of opportunities, but where do you see opportunity cost that's really costing people? Are there things that you would like to see develop? I mean, obviously school is one of them, and you're filling that niche yourself.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be the one that you would go with. If you think of any others, let me know.
Well, yeah. I mean, the first series I ever did was called The Young Person's Guide to Politics. And I just wanted to let people know that, hey, there's not going to be any conversations about school reform here, because that system is exactly what it needs to be for who it needs to be, and it ain't changing. So if we really want education, we're going to have to work and think outside of that system. And, this is something that's happening on all levels of government, too. I know somebody who moved here thinking that this was, not to Keene, but to another part of New Hampshire, thinking that they would be able to pretty, easily start their own business. They wanted to open a restaurant, and they saw the wall of regulations. And once they climbed that wall, they realized that, yeah, there's like a little landing area, but then there's another wall of regulations, and you had to climb the first wall to see the second wall of regulations.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So, like, they think they've achieved their dream by jumping through all the hoops, and then there are more hoops they
knew
need to stay alive?
But it's a race, right? Can I get through all the regulations before I run out of startup capital? And this person just couldn't do it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And they had a great idea, and it was really sad.
Well, that's why people go Galt. And that's why people do move to places like New Hampshire. I'm sorry there are still paywalls and restrictions here, but some people choose to ignore them. There's agorist food delivery businesses. There's agorist restaurants and things that people can visit here in the Shire. So there's a solution.
So I tutor, right? I do a lot of SAT tutoring, and I try to like do just the show as my income. But people from all the years of work that I've done, I still get phone calls.
Yeah,
like,
why
hey,
wouldn't you?
So and so told me about you. They had a son 2 years ago, and you took the SAT. And do you still do this? And I say, yeah, I'll do it. And I don't ask anybody's permission to do that. I don't tell anybody I do it. I make a deal with the person who calls, and I provide the service, and I collect their money. And I've been doing that for, I've been doing that for 3 years.
That's agorism. What you just described is a perfect example of agorism.
Yeah.
Did you do agorism before you knew the word?
Nope. No.
Wow. Okay, so you were like, this is what I'm going to do, and this is that's awesome, because you're really helping achieve freedom for young people. I hope that they don't take those SATs too seriously, though.
No, yeah, that's the other reason why I wanted to get away from it, is I still felt like I learned my way out of all these jobs, right? Like, I get this first job, I'm restraining kids. I learned my way out of that. I get this next job, and I realize the problems with that, and then the next one, and then the next one. So finally, like, the last step for me to just becoming a professional podcaster is like, hey, if I'm like tutoring the SAT, I'm kind of feeding into this whole college myth, you know?
Yeah, you are.
I didn't feel good about doing it anymore. So I'll do a couple of those classes a year, but I didn't want to make a living that way anymore.
I like that people who do agorism tend to choose projects that make them feel like it's making their life better, your life better. You know, you're not just, oh, I have to go tutor now. You know, a lot of people about their jobs, they just feel exasperated or exhausted when they think about going in. But with agorism, it tends to be stuff that people are excited about. They're so excited, in fact, that they'll take a risk. You know, like what you're saying is you're not reporting about all of this income right now. Isn't that risky for you? Do you feel afraid for that?
No, I think it would actually be riskier if I had been like communicating with the IRS on a regular basis.
Yeah,
and
good point.
And they're like, Brett, we haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah,
it's,
right.
You know, it's been a year, and then
you don't call us anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I wrote back and said, oh my goodness, yes, things must be out of order, but we just don't talk. You know.
That's good. I don't want a relationship with them. They're abusive. Arnheimer. Reporting back to this benswan.com article to finish this up. So he was a hacker. He was convicted by the government. He had his charges overturned, and now he's billing the federal government for his time in prison. Arnheimer is invoicing the government at a rate of 1 Bitcoin per hour, totaling 28,296 Bitcoins, worth about $13 million in U.S. currency. Quote, I do not accept United States dollars, as it is the preferred currency of criminal organizations such as the FBI, Department of Justice, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and the Federal Reserve, and I do not assist criminal racketeering enterprises. Wow, powerful statement.
Yes.
The letter in its entirety is written below, so you can check that out at benswan.com. But you know, as much as Weave is complaining about things being bad, they're not as bad as China. June 5th, 1989. This week marks the 25-year anniversary of something I think about quite often. I used to have a picture of this in my old office of Tank Man. Does anyone know Tank Man? Well, that's right. That iconic picture of a man standing in front of, well, I guess, about 10 tanks in the streets of Tiananmen Square. Is having an anniversary this week from Time.com. On June 5th, 1989, Jonathan Chan arrived at Beijing Airport with 2 swollen bumps visible on the back of his head in a line of tired and weary student demonstrators eager to slip out of the capital, if not the country. The 24-year-old slid his hand into his pocket, fingering the single roll of film he had rescued moments before his camera had been smashed by Chinese soldiers. We'll return to this story when PNN returns after this trip to the market. Plus, we'll hear about this actually happened, a court stenographer who typed, I hate my job, for 30 cases.
Wow.
When PNN returns.
Tech news this week as Microsoft has unveiled its new generation Xbox One. Designers say the console's revolutionary makes it easier than ever for the Xbox to control its users. According to Microsoft spokesman Don Matrick, quote, the Xbox One is programmed with a host of simple voice commands that you will respond to instantly. In addition to phrases like jump, shoot, and insert game disc, users will also understand more complicated instructions like download Call of Duty Update or come into the room and turn on Xbox.
The Xbox One tells us what games to play, what music to listen to, what shows to watch. Watch TV. And with that simple command, I'm watching live TV.
The new Xbox's high-tech sensors can also detect your expression and tell when you're looking away from the television.
Andy, look back at the TV.
Microsoft says the new Xbox can also command you using your smartphone or tablet. TechBuzz is raving. Quote, it's the immersive obedience experience we've been waiting for.
This is the Onion News Network.
If there was a place that liberty-minded people had been elected to political positions and were rolling back government, would you move there? If freedom lovers had secured a 20% voting bloc and can veto most bad bills, would you move? Well, the time has come to sign the pledge at freestateproject.org. These things have happened in New Hampshire, and you can join us and help. freestateproject.org. Sign up now at freestateproject.org.
What if the key to achieving liberty in your lifetime was to move together with others who think like you? Liberty activists are joining the Free State Project, which is over 70% of the way to its goal of 20,000 participants. And they're already making the move to New Hampshire. The successes are piling up and are proving the Free State Project is a real movement and no longer just a great idea. When you're planning your move, consider Keene. Keene is famous for its civil disobedience and non-cooperation, and there's plenty of political opportunity as well. From demonstrations and vigils to outreach and volunteering, there's a lot going on in Keene. Keene is the liberty media capital of the world, with television, talk radio, and more, all originating here. Though it's more than just activism, with regular social events each week. See what's happening at freekeene.com and get connected with video, audio, free books, a forum, and activist tools you can download and use in your area at freekeene.com. That's freekeene.com. DVD, books, music, instruments, periodicals, computers, software, electronics, photo, cell phones, office products, home and garden, bed and bath, furniture, kitchen, pet supplies, automotive, hardware, apparel, shoes, jewelry, grocery, healthcare, sports and outdoors, toys, games, used, and more. It's a department store at your fingertips. Shop.lrn.fm. Get all your shopping done, get a great deal, and a portion of your purchase goes to benefit the Liberty Radio Network when you shop at Amazon via shop.lrn.fm.
A meme is not easy to define.
What is it?
But you know it when you see it.
Amazing.
Don'tTreadOnMeme.com proves that.
I feel so enlightened.
Don't Tread on Meme, M-E-M-E, helping you give the finger to our monetary system of deception by providing you with silver dime trading cards. Unlike today's dollar, they have value, and they look neat too.
Oh, would you look at those? Aren't those just swell?
Don't Tread on Meme. Use Silver Calculator app. This simple piece of technology lets you know instantly, whether using iPhone or Android, just how much your silver coin is.
You are not on the air, but we are on a break. Is this Nathan calling in from Texas?
Don't tread on me. Your
it is.
Can you hear me clearly?
Don't tread on meme.com. Serving you
I don't know how to say this, but I'm getting bad audio on my phone too.
Okay, well that's important for me to know. That's good. I wonder what it could be. There's one more number. If you just call this again, I'll pick it up from somewhere else. I can pick it up from over there. Welcome back. This is Peace News Now. We're talking about stories of peaceful resistance, remembering the 25-year anniversary of Tiananmen Square and the bravery of the people who are known as Tank Man, the man who stood in front of that iconic photo in front of tanks. And we were just recounting a story from Time.com about how he was walking through the Beijing airport gripping his roll of film. A journalist standing next to him took notice, quickly explaining how he might break open the roller, overexpose the images, and protect himself if he were stopped by airport immigration. Then Chan walked to the front line and waited for the inevitable question. "Were you on the square?" the immigration official asked. "I was," Chan said, expecting to be detained. Frowning, the official leaned in. "Then go and tell the world," the official said softly before waving him through. Wow, I didn't know that there was actually someone on the inside who helped him achieve this greatness. Well, for the past 25 years, that's exactly what Chan Lam and Lee have tried to do. As leading student activists from Hong Kong, they played a vital role in the protests at Beijing's Tiananmen Square, not only as fundraisers and couriers of supplies for their fellow protesters, but also as emissaries of information, able to evade Communist Party censors by returning to Hong Kong, then still administered by the British, and enjoying a vigorously free press and communications regime to share their stories. So everyone knows the story of Tiananmen Square, the Tank Man students. A lot of people got injured. Tank Man didn't. He made it out alive, and we're excited about that. That kind of bravery, that's what I want to see in the world. People who've got nothing to lose, and they say, I'm not going to use violent means to achieve my goals, but I'll be darned if I'm not going to stand up and prevent you from using violence on everyone else.
Yeah, it was one of the, one of the reasons why the picture is so powerful is it's like this amazing contrast, right, of like this faceless tank, you know, and you see this man who appears to be nicely dressed. He looks like he's wearing a white dress shirt and a pair of slacks, you know, standing there with his bag. And it's pretty dramatic. And I think, too, that, you know, for him to stand out, considering the situation in China at the time, with his face, you know, exposed like that, in such a dangerous place to do that, while, you know, all of these guys are not only hidden in tanks, but the more anonymity you have, like if we look at how the police are dressing in this country now, you know, when they have to deal with crowds, the worse your behavior is. You know?
Well, Tank Man inspired me hugely. I wouldn't be able to even think of doing something like the Give Peace a Chance arrest in downtown Central Square if I hadn't had the inspiration of Tank Man, who was able to say when the tanks came at him, he didn't just stand there and let them go around him. When they tried to move around him, he stepped to the side. When they tried to go the other way, he stepped back the other way.
Yeah.
And he would not let them pass. And eventually he was waving his flag, saying, here I am, you know, you're not passing me. And I don't know if any video exists of what happened afterwards. We just have to use our imagination. Or you can read the Time magazine story yourself. We've got too much to get to. But any closing thoughts on this story, Brett?
No, I just think it's very powerful, and it was nice to get some more information about it.
Yeah. Well, I agree. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on in Keene that I just can't forget to mention.
Sure.
It's too important. My last guest on Peace News Now was Rich Paul, a freedom activist who inspired me through his activism in Keene, New Hampshire. It's the reason I am here in Keene was mostly due to Rich Paul. He has since been arrested. He is charged with a violation of probation. And his hearing is still yet to be determined. We don't know when he will be in court for that. He was in court for arraignment. He smiled at the audience. He seems in good spirits. He called me yesterday and relayed to me a couple of messages, one of which was that he wants everyone to know that he loves them. And he has a trial on the 18th. It's going to be a hearing on the... what do you call it when you fail at trial and you appeal? Yeah, it's going to be the hearing arguments about his appeal, because it could be argued that the jury didn't understand the concept of jury nullification. The way the judge explained it, he did a poor job. And New Hampshire is one of these states where jury nullification actually means something. The judge can explain it, the defendants can talk about it, not so in other states. So he's really going to press this issue of jury nullification, say that it wasn't explained properly, and that's why he lost his case.
Yeah.
And so that's what's going on with Rich Paul. It's too important to forget about. So he is back in jail currently. He can take visitors. You can write to Rich Paul through mailtojail.com, a free way to send messages, and it's the most important thing that you could do to help an activist who's behind bars is to communicate, because what those bars do is keep you isolated from the rest of the world. And it's as soon as that door shuts, I can speak from personal experience, when that door went clang, it was over. I just felt so alone. Like there was no way that I could reach the outside world. And I know Rich has communicated that he feels very much the same way. So mailtojail.com. No reason not to. Get your message to Rich. It's free. It takes no time at all. While you're listening to this, if you're at your computer, you can send him a message. And he will get those messages, and they mean a lot. So
yeah, we were actually talking about the isolation on Free Talk Live a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I've never been in that situation. I certainly know what it feels like to be isolated. But even though there are, I guess, people around you in jail, I can only imagine that being cut off from the people that you care about and the people that care about you is an incredibly difficult thing to face. So.
Plus, it's the quality of people that you're around. I don't mean to be uppity, but like Rich is an engineer. He's a programmer. He worked for Citibank, and so it's not, you don't find that caliber of person inside jail. Typically, you won't find. I won't be able to take this call, unfortunately. Sorry, I appreciate that folks are calling in to the program this evening. You've been calling and Skyping. Typically that works. We've changed studios, and so my connections are incorrect, and I just can't get you on. I'm sorry. I will have that fixed by Tuesday. So keep calling in and leave a message. You can leave a message, and I could actually play that during our next episode. So leave a message when you get declined, and I'll be happy to play those messages for you. But you were saying, yeah, it's isolating in jail. Even though there are people that you can talk with, they're not the same kind of people that you would talk with on the outside.
That's true, yeah. And like that can feel even more isolating sometimes when you're not getting that need for connection met, Like you're going through the motions of it, but you're not maybe walking away from an interaction feeling better necessarily.
Well, I think that's why books are so huge for people in jail, because you're like interacting with this author, they're communicating the ideas to you. But then even then, it's like sometimes you read something really great, you want to share it with someone, and you can't do that. I remember when I was in jail, one of the weird experiences was someone seeing me draw out a calendar that I just made up because I was like, I need to know how long I've been in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I just drew it on a piece of paper, and he was like so amazed and was saying, could you do that for me? I was like, wow. So this is the kind of person who you run into in jail, is someone who doesn't even have the skills to create a calendar for the month. So it's a different kind of isolation. Even though there are people around, they're not the kinds of people you would probably be interacting with in the outside world.
That's understandable. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an important thing. We have to make sure that the listeners of this program who care about peaceful resistance know that hero activist Rich Paul is in jail and he needs your help. He also will probably need to fundraise for another lawyer, because they fundraised for a high-powered lawyer last time. I believe he's still a part of the appeal, but this is a whole new charge, violation of probation. They're going to be talking about drug history. They're going to be talking about using monopod as a weapon in Keene Central Square, which brings us to the chalk war. The chalk war in Keene, which has gone from cold to hot, as a local man this week was injured, had 3 vertebrae in his neck displaced over chalking. This is all happening in Keene Central Square. More with Peace News Now and Brett when we return.
This Your Family Today tip is brought to you by Nestle Pure Life Water, helping you drink better and live better by providing a zero-calorie alternative to sugary drinks. Visit us at purelife.us. When kids are playing, they often don't want to stop to keep hydrated, so send them out with a bottle of water and encourage them to take frequent drink breaks, or call them inside for a quick sip. For more tips like these, visit us at parenthood.com/yourfamilytoday.
Since time began, tyrants have taken aim at personal liberties. Now there's a movie that aims back.
The government has no more right to tell us what to put in our bodies than they have to take our guns or tell us what books we can read.
6 drug police were eaten by bears while raiding a marijuana farm.
On your knees, you dirty hippies! On your knees! What's the problem, officer?
Today, many cops who enforce pot laws do so only because it provides them with cushy jobs, good benefits, and a chance to push people around.
I was an undercover narcotics officer. The drug war is nothing but a farce.
The Second Amendment says you gotta keep you and your gat intact.
Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. A film by Michael W. Dean and Nima Badadi.
DVD available now at gunsandweed.com or on Amazon. That's gunsandweed.com. Makes the perfect gift. Remember, that's gunsandweed.com.
Did you know that you can listen to LRN.FM 24/7 via our free-to-air satellite channel? From Mexico to Canada, our signal covers nearly all of North America. All you need is a view of the southern sky, an affordable receiver, and a dish as small as 30 inches. There are no monthly fees. Learn more at sat.lrn.fm. Plus, if you're a broadcaster or want to be one, this is a good delivery method for our content. See our coverage map and get details at sat.lrn.fm. That's sat.lrn.fm.
If you want to move to the free state and you're looking for some real estate, well, I know a guy who's really great. It's the realtor Mark Warden. Do you want a home with 20 acres, a lakeside cabin, any takers for renters, buyers, and sellers too? Mark Warden is the guy for you. PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Here's a chance to do a little activism while you're cruising Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. Between the LOL cats, the recipes, the hot girls, and the inspirational sunrise memes, Free Talk Live's post pass by your newsfeed. Like them, comment. It gives us more exposure. If you don't see our posts, click like at facebook.freetalklive.com and then hover over it to click Get Notifications. It's an easy way to spread the ideas of liberty a bit further. I know you're busy, but you can spare that 1/10 of a calorie it takes to click on something. facebook.freetalklive.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, add yourself to the Shire map at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
You can sign up to receive the latest about the Liberty Radio Network via our email updates at updates.lrn.fm. That's updates.lrn.fm.
We're back after a quick costume change. Brett Veinotte. Excuse me. You know, I learned your name incorrectly. Full disclosure. I started out by calling you Brett Veinotte.
Mm-hmm.
And that is incorrect. It is Brett Veinotte. And so I'm trying to overcome this this challenge that I've made for myself. We're talking. So, is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's great. Somebody was calling me Brett Veinotte, which I actually kind of like.
Yeah, maybe you should change your name. That has a little more of a sing-song quality to it, right?
It does. My listeners call me Brett Veinotte.
Okay. Well, I will go Brett Veinotte.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna do that. Thanks. So we've got some other, this is the last time in the show. Unfortunately, we can't take calls. We had this weird problem of I set up the new studio and I did something incorrectly, and so we will be able to take your calls on Tuesday. Please leave messages. But I just want to go through all the stuff that's been happening in Keene. It's been such an exciting week. Typically, the show, I cover news from around the globe, and there is you can check the podcast show notes for the stories that we didn't get to. But I just want to, as quickly as we can, cover all the things that have been happening in Keene. Have you heard about this group, Stop Free Keene?
I certainly have.
Okay. Well, they have changed their name to the Monadnock Community Coalition, and they did something interesting yesterday. They stripped the paint on the gazebo in downtown Central Square, an iconic fixture in the town. It's where I had my dance parties for the Little Freer Dance, and it's where some people go to smoke for 20 rallies. It's really the only coverage from rain in the downtown area, so sometimes people will go in there and chill. They've taken it on themselves to beautify the park. And what do you think about this group? Do you have any thoughts? Because I find it to be flattering. Frankly, I see them as #1 fans. Even though they're the exact opposite, they're like, we hate you. There's some sort of uneasy relationship between hate and love. And when someone really hates you, you know they care.
Yeah, I think there is the caring. I don't know enough about the composition of the group or how diverse it is or how many people are. I know they have a lot of members on Facebook, but I don't know how many of them are really active and really committed to this.
Well, members on Facebook you can just pull in. Like I could add you to any group I want.
That's true. That's true. So I know they had a pretty good group for their silent protest a few weeks ago.
That's true.
And what I see is, two groups that seem to have a lot of enemy imagery of each other, and
with characters in their minds of what each is doing, right?
Yeah, and if you decide you don't like somebody, or they're doing something that makes you uncomfortable, or saying things that make you uncomfortable, I think it's easy, or maybe it's even, there's an effort sometimes to reduce them down to something like stupid or crazy. It's easier to, when people do things or say things or try to point things out to you that are unsettling, to say, oh, you must be stupid.
Right,
crazy.
That makes it easier, because then you can just dismiss it. You don't have to keep thinking about it and find where our real common ground is.
Right.
Which, by the way, that is, I think, the challenge. Where do you think our common ground is?
Well, you're all trying to share a community, and I think that's really important. And I think that one of the things that people should focus on, or I'd like to see people focus on, is when there are problems in a community, can they be solved? Can they be dealt with?
Of course they can.
I think so too.
With the right attitude, they can. We were talking about chalking memorials the other day, and I was saying I don't care. I would chalk a memorial. I've done it in the past.
Yeah.
But that makes some people upset, and it might not be the right tactical move. There are some people who are saying right now on both sides, hey, you guys should just cut it out. We're sick of this, just let stuff die down for a little while. And someone got injured. We don't want this to continue happening. So what would you say to those critics who say, we've pushed the envelope too far, both sides need to cut it out? Would that be defeatist?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think that's it's saying, well, we give up because someone used violence, we're not going to present our ideas peacefully anymore?
I don't know what this sense, like, to say that we can't get up, we have to keep going. It kind of puts this sense of urgency on the whole thing that I don't know if that's actually there.
I agree. I think it's kind of nuts. Like I used to chalk, and I haven't chalked much this year at all. I don't like the feeling on my hands. It's that small of an issue. But I see people who are chalking, like I'll name names. I see Garrett Ian, and he wants to provoke anger or something in this Stop Free Keene group. Like, even though it's not anger, that's definitely the wrong word. Because I took video of him yesterday. They were cleaning up the gazebo, and he decided to do a 420 protest, or a 420 celebration right there, like while they were working, which I thought was a cool idea, but probably really pissed him off.
Yeah.
And then also did a meditation with his camera on his head, which is just goofy, and it's not good or bad. It's just, it probably pissed them off. So what do you say about activism like that is just, I don't know, do you think it achieves anything?
No.
I don't either, but I love my friend. I think it's peaceful to meditate in front of this other group, but I don't think it's achieving anything. So that's the real danger. It's worse to do something that's ineffective than to do nothing at all, because then you waste your time.
Right. So what I've always asked for is clarification of goals. Right. Now, you can't say we are Free Keene, these are our goals. This other group might be able to say that because they might be thinking about a lot of these things more uniformly.
Why can't Free Keene say that?
Because this is not a group of uniform thinkers.
That's true. But they are bloggers. I like that distinction. Free Keene are bloggers, and they have their faces and their names all identifiable at freekeene.com, which this Monadnock Community Coalition does not have. So there's a certain level of accountability and transparency there. So there could be Free Keene blog posts that said these are Free Keene stated goals, couldn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is an about on the Free Keene page, and I was pretty impressed because I read it recently because I wanted to see, like, what is the mission of Free Keene? As I've been here and I've been trying to understand, when I see a lot of things, I say I disagree with that, or I wouldn't do that. Well, what's the mission? What is this trying to serve? And yeah, I mean, there's a theater to pissing people off, but if part of the goal is to like be an example of voluntarism.
Yeah.
You know, like exacerbating conflicts. I really don't. And then talking about like calling the police is really like that's kind of off-putting to me. And I understand the theater. Like one of the funniest things was that I ever saw happen in Keene was the city council drinking game.
Yeah, I just watched that video last night. Hilarious.
Yeah, that's brilliant theater.
Yes.
Right. Now I didn't
because it was baiting. I think it's similar though to what Ian is doing. It's baiting the bad behavior from the bureaucrats. He knows that these people rise to violence. Aaron knows that the Veinott people rise to violence, and the drinking game participants knew that the city council rises to violence. So I think what's happening is a little bit of baiting. Like, I'm going to be peaceful, and as long as I'm being peaceful, you're the aggressor here. You know, is that the sort of image that?
Here's the trick, and it comes down to like balancing publicity with public relations, right? And also recognition of where most people are. So if you're trying to reach people and say, look how violent the government is, right? Yes. It's supposed to do.
Yeah.
But it's kind of ineffective. It kind of falls on deaf ears if these people say, oh yeah, you're the kind of guy that they're here for. You know, like you're the kind of guy that makes the violence necessary. Or you're a rabble rouser. So I think, and they're wrong, you know.
Right.
I mean, Gary, Ian, Sam Dotson, Ian, they're certainly not thugs.
No.
Right? But
they've all done good and bad activism.
But you want, for me, like if I could have my own, you know, community where I was king.
Yeah. What would it be?
I'm trying to free people. I would say that you build positive relationships with the community first before you start doing any activism.
Yeah. Well, I have to. So in school, sometimes they have a rule that if you give a put down, you have to give 2 put ups. And so I put down Gary Ian, and so my 2 put ups will be that he does fantastic, consistent Robin Hooding activism, which is always a win. That is good activism, and also. Oh shoot! I just totally lost the other one. That for good activism he produces media for Cheshire TV, which brings us to our next segment, which is about Cheshire TV. A bunch of local shows opened up. So people who don't know what this is, Cheshire TV is the local TV station in town, and anyone can submit shows. You don't even have to produce them in studio there. You can just produce your own show at home, send it to Cheshire TV. You don't even have to be from Cheshire County, I don't think, to submit shows to them, but it would help. So they have a bunch of spots opening up. That is some peaceful activism that could be happening. I can't believe we're at the end of the show already.
That was fast.
Yeah, my goodness. Well, that's peaceful activism you do. Real quick, we have to mention June 7th at 10 a.m. Hobbs trial in Keene, New Hampshire. Plus, the city council meeting about banning chalk is happening this Wednesday, so be there or be square. It's been Brett Veinotte of SchoolSucksProject.com.
Thanks for having me. Happy birthday.
Hi, I'm Jay. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea